A lot of men struggle with their faith after they become fathers. And I know this concept is kind of like, it doesn't really make sense to you. And I'm going to explain it in this video because this is something I'm like speaking from firsthand experience on. But this is the 3F life: build the body, lead the home, honor God. This is where discipline meets devotion, faith, family, fitness, and I'm your host, Connor. And when I talk about the subject, losing your faith after you become a father, it's like, I think a lot of people are like, no, I'm gonna take my kids to church and everything like that. And a lot of people do, but when you become a father, like, your life changes, your time changes in such a dramatic way. Like, for me, I became a father when I was 19 years old. And before that, I'm going to church every Sunday. I'm in youth group. I'm, doing Bible studies and everything like that. And then after that, it was like, man, I don't feel like I have any time. Like, I've got all this weight on my shoulders. I got to go to work every day. I'm working 50, 60 hours a week to provide for my family. When do I go to church? Like, when do I have time to pray? Because then I come home from church, or I come home from work, and it's just like, I don't get that much time with my son. So I'm spending that time with my son when I come home from work. And in that period of my life, this is about a decade ago, I slipped. Like, when my son was first born, I'm reading the Bible every day, and I had told myself, I want to read the Bible entirely. And I got through like 2-3 months, and then it was just such a drain on me. Like, I had no sleep, and I'm working all this time. I'm living on caffeine and junk food, and the life kind of spirals. You get into this whole dad bod stuff that people think is cool, and it's like, no, man, like, you just let yourself go, and you let yourself go physically, you let yourself go in your faith as well. And this is exactly what happened to me. And part of that, like, I was smoking and doing things I shouldn't have done because I'm trying to cope with a difficult life instead of just relying on God to help me get through the difficult times. Because the value of, like, keeping your faith strong when you're a father is so crucial. And the way I look at it now is, is my faith important? Absolutely. But my faith is even more important now because I have to pass that faith down to 3 other children. And if they don't have the faith that I have, and if I don't set that example for them on a faith base, then what man are they going to become? And if I don't, then, like, do I care about my son's souls? Because ultimately, like, in this life, like, God calls us to care about everybody's soul. So everybody you come across, you come across people at work, church, and everything, like, you should care about their eternity, where they go when they die. But, like, personally, and this sounds a little selfish, like, shouldn't you, like, your kids should be 100% like the priority. Like, don't raise men to be weak men. Don't raise men not to pursue God and let him lead their life. Because there's so many examples of people in the Bible that just walked away from God. And they went off and lived in sin. And I know from experience, like, you go and you live in sin, and then you come back. And the thing is, for me, like, I was raised this right way by my parents. I was in church my whole life. And you become an adult, and then you have your own choices. And a lot of times people don't make those right choices. And for me, this is exactly what happened. I just steered away from God. And then I woke up, 7-8 years later, and I was like, man, what a mistake. I've lived my life all wrong. I've set such a bad example for my son. And now I'm coming back to God, like the prodigal son story. And I got in that moment where it was like, at this point, I don't feel like I deserve God's love, but he still gives it to me. And what I want for my kids is that my kids don't go through that experience. Because I went through an experience where if I had died 5-6 years ago, I believed in God, but I didn't walk with him. I didn't pray to him. I didn't confess my sins to him. So if he were to have let me pass away, I don't know. I don't know if I would be in heaven right now. And when it comes to, like, raising your kids, this should be so crucial in your life. Like, I talk to people about this, like, when it comes to, like, how do you raise kids on your own, and so forth. And you can never allow yourself to be like the worst version of yourself, I feel like. Because if I allow myself to be weak and I go and I, stumble and do these non-godly things, I'm going to set that example for my kids that when they get older, these things are okay. And I don't want my kids to live like that, because I got to set that example for them that God wants me to. I got to be the man that God wants me to become for my children. And at this point, it's about way more than yourself. Because it's one thing to, follow God for you and for your soul. But when you're doing this for others, that relationship with God has to become much stronger than it is before. And not to say like you shouldn't have a strong relationship with God if you're like, don't have kids. But when you do have kids, that relationship is so much more important, because you're passing on that relationship. You're teaching your kids how to have a relationship with God. You're showing your kids how Jesus shows you love. And if you can't do that, then your kids are set up for downfall. And I think that this world that we live in today is filled with so much sin, and there's so much stuff that's prying at our kids, stuff that is being put out in the media and everything. The world doesn't want your kids to succeed. They're pumping down stuff in the content that they watch. They're, the music that's out. Everything that's out there is not aligned to lead your kids to Christ. And really, the only way for you to do that is to lead by example and lead in your home. Because when your kids get older, they're going to leave for school every day, and they're going to be around a bunch of people that don't believe in God, and they're going to be shown all this stuff. And I mean, I remember when I was in school, like, I'm exposed to sex, to pornography, to weed, like everything like that. Like, you get exposed to all these things at a young age, and these things are just pulling you away from God. And the world we live in today is even way more, like, people are pulling you away from God in such a higher magnitude than even when I was little. And so for your kids, if you don't have that strong relationship with God and you don't set that example for how they should walk, they're doomed for failure. They should walk behind you, and then, ideally, in my opinion, you want your kids to succeed you. Like, I want my kids to be better than I am. So when my kids are my age, they're stronger, they're better believers, they're doing more with their life than I've done. And they haven't had to go through the experiences I've gone through, because they haven't had to fall, and they had that example. Because we're going to just repeat mistakes over and over again until we learn from them. And I think it's better to learn from others' mistakes than to repeat them yourselves. And I've done that in my life. I've repeated mistakes of my father, and as much as it stinks, it's just like, it's a part of life. And I fear that my kids one day will repeat those same mistakes, but for me to prevent that, I've got to raise them the way God wants me to raise them. And that's kind of what this channel is about. I want to share my experiences so other people can learn from my mistakes and they don't have to repeat them themselves, because it's a really dark world that's out there, and the world doesn't want you to go to heaven. Like, the world is not controlled. Like, it's the people that are in power are not believers. They don't want you to go to heaven. They're not trying to lead you to Christ. Like, think about like if all the media and like TV channels and everything were like faith-based. Think about the difference that we would see versus what we see. The politicians, like, these guys do not care if you go to heaven or not. Whatever side you're on, like, they just genuinely don't care. That's not what they're all about them, and we need to be about Him. I think that that's the most important thing. So if you make it this far in the video, thank you for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. This year I'm going to be pumping out a lot more content, faith, family, fitness. We're trying to lead as many young men as we can to help, prevent them from making the mistakes I did and lead them closer to Christ. But as always, thank you and God bless.